In Victoria today, as you know, Melbourne got the good news that the lockdown is kind of lifting.
So for Melbourne, that means the 5 reasons to leave home will no longer apply in metropolitan Melbourne. The existing 10-kilometre limit will be increased to 25 kilometres. That means the only reasons to go further than 25 kilometres will be for work, education, caregiving or getting a vaccination. Travel into regional Victoria still remains a no-go for now. We're also still not in a position to be able to have visitors in our home, but outdoor gatherings will be increased to a maximum of 10 people.
Now, of course, despite the fact that we have shown you for every day during the lockdown that despite all of the conversations about the Schwarzenegger version of the virus, the Van Damme strain of the definitely not China virus that apparently was ripping through at a kickboxing level that would have made Patrick Swayze proud in the movie Roadhouse. We showed you that it didn't matter how many people got tested, the total number of people who ended up getting crook was, of course, 0.01%. This thing was nowhere near as bad as they made it out to be, and there was no need to make sure that every kid in Victoria wasn't able to go to school until this week, let alone the number of people who were shut down from their lives and their businesses. But of course, they set the rules and they get to pat themselves on the back.
This is a good day. This is a good day. Everyone should be absolutely proud of what we've all achieved together.
It's just pro forma stuff. You can tell what's going to happen here, even in Queensland. Yay, we're Queensland strong because we beat 2 cases. You know how this goes. Well, of course, there's not a lot of science involved in these things. In fact, I refer to them as the Goldilocks rules when it comes to COVID because, of course, just like in the famous story oh so way back when, something was too cold or too hot, but then it was just right. And now, despite the fact that today you're not allowed to go further than 10 kilometres, magically, on Friday you will now be allowed to go 25 kilometres. Despite the fact that kids aren't at school, magically they will all be able to go back to school because this is the power of Goldilocks. All kids will be going back to school. They never should have come out. National Cabinet has to deal with this, that kids have to stay in school. Now, thankfully, you'll be allowed to leave your home and not need any of the 5 different reasons, but magically you won't be able to travel further than 25 kilometres. Also, no guests at home. But try and follow the logic here. The shops are open and there's very little limits about the number of people who can go to the shops. So literally, you can't have a single friend or family member over to your house to sit at the other end of the dining table or at the other end of the backyard for a barbecue, but you can stand in line while people buy as much toilet paper for the next time that somebody decides to have a sniffle. Of course, hair salons, beauty, that'll all be open. Gyms, of course not, because, you know, science. Now, for the businesses that are going to be affected by this, and there's plenty of restaurants who are right back to the rules where they're going to have a trickle of people through the front door, which means they don't qualify for any of the financial assistance. But of course, they still have all of the costs as if their business was running at full tilt. But James Merlino, well, he's just such a kind deputy emperor.
We know that some businesses, so for Melbourne, like gyms, amusement parks, dance studios, nightclubs, they'll need to remain closed for a little while longer. That's why I'm announcing a further $8.36 million to provide an additional $2,000 grant to support thousands of businesses eligible for the Business Cost Assistance Program that remain closed under the restrictions that I'm announcing today.
Yay, Luna Park gets $2,000? Ridiculous. As for the issues in regional Victoria, despite the fact that there have been no cases through this whole thing, nothing, duck egg, zero, there are still all these rules that apply. And what is particularly nasty about the rules that have been put in place here is that even if you live on the absolute outer suburban part of Melbourne, you can only travel 25 kilometres. So you're not really going to be able to go into regional Victoria because, of course, there's nervousness about people going from Victoria into New South Wales. It effectively means that thousands of people are trapped inside the 25-kilometre zones that exist in and around regional areas. So do they get the $2,000? Of course not. Goldilocks is in charge now. However, the government's very kind, despite the fact that neither you or a family member or a friend or a mate or a stranger has had COVID in this time around, you're only allowed 2 people per day. 2 adults per day. You still need to wear masks in regional Victoria, despite the fact that somebody from central Melbourne wouldn't be able to drive into somewhere like Wodonga. If you were planning to get married, and God forbid you were trying to do that at a winery or something else, only 20 people. But remember, they all, of course, can't travel 25 kilometres to get there. Same for a funeral. Well, now you're allowed to have 75. Goldilocks rules. They just make them up, and everyone goes, oh, thank you so much. You kept us safe. No, you didn't.